Welcome to the Funnel Reboot Podcast with your host, Glenn Schmeltzley. Let's get into today's show.
Hey, Glenn here. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you've been with us for a while, welcome to Funnel Reboot. Today, we'll see our work from a creative professional's vantage point. Let's get straight into today's episode. The relationship between those of us who generate creative work and the rest of us that are in revenue-related roles can be strained. From those I've talked to in graphics or visual arts, being left to their lonesome makes it hard to produce creative that's exactly what the marketers and other stakeholders want. That's one reason why I hope you listen to today's talk with a graphic designer who wrote a guide for other graphic designers to help your interactions with your creative counterparts. But the other reason is this author's healthy outlook on everything. I was first exposed to how zen-like he was when I met him at an event in 2017. And I read LinkedIn updates over the years and I marveled at how he did everything at his design agency, his training business, and his college lecturing with this sense of mirth. When we met again, virtually, of course, in 2020, he talked about everything that he had going on, and he just had that same exact calm tone. So by the time he came out with his second book this last year, called Stop Looking for Zebras, I seized the chance to let you hear his unique viewpoint for yourself. Let's go hear from our guest, Robert Smith, who's going to explain that book title and much more. I'm so glad to welcome Robert Smith. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Could you please tell us the name of your most recent book?
My most recent book is called Stop Looking for Zebras.
And we'll leave that cryptic just for the moment. We'll get into what that is.
Title to it, but yeah, let's leave
That's
it.
right. So to understand who the book is for, let's understand just briefly what your background is. So in maybe one sentence, if you could just sum up who Robert Smith is.
I guess at this point in my career, I'm a branding expert. I've been doing it for many, many years, and it's an area of specialty for myself.
Correct. And the ranks through which you came up in that were on the graphic design side.
Correct. Yes.
So people in a creative field will certainly identify with this, and you speak directly to them when you talk about someone at a young age, and you point out that if you are a creative person, it may be true, it's like the Jeff Foxworthy, you may be a redneck if you were ostracized in school, if you were never sitting properly in your seat, never coloring in the lines, never doing those things that, were seen as being off of the norm. And you turn that all around now. You say, okay, that may have been a hardship for you in school, but as an adult, what do you say to them?
As an adult, that makes you, and particularly now in this day and age, it makes you incredibly worthy and very much in demand, because we've been put through a system that really honors, and again, the school system in that, because it's marks based, that it very much tries to pigeonhole everybody into a very similar sort of situation. And when the high school experience, one of the quotes from the book is, it's interesting that you were told you were disruptive in class, and now your clients are asking you to be disruptive.
And paying for it.
And paying a lot of money for it, because they need it. And we're in that world of AI and whatnot, and this human approach is so needed. And the idea of being able to think outside of, I hate the statements outside of the box, because that statement itself is inside of the box.
Good point.
but that whole idea that you're able to think of a very different approach, a non-traditional approach, and with social media and that it's become so important that you stand out in some way. People that think that way are becoming very much in demand.
Hmm. And there's been a selection bias, which has caused most of the people who will be either deciding to hire you or uh, setting out the budgets, which these creative campaigns will be done in, uh, and their creativity's been drowned out of them. And
Exactly.
you are now the exception to the rule, and that makes you, as you say, worthy and worth a lot.
Exactly, absolutely. I because I also teach, and I teach third year graphic design students mainly about self promotion and getting themselves out there and getting a job. And one of the things I've been talking about recently is the broken aspect of the traditional resume for people in our
Hmm.
industry, and so much time is put on that. And so I use the example. I said, look. Kellogg's does not sell Fruit Loops by showing you the ingredients, right? They show you the color, the beauty, the fun, the playfulness. Then you look at the ingredients, and the traditional resume is the ingredients really,
Hmm.
and we hire people for culture, and so you really need to have that engaging, interesting front end, and then give them the ingredients afterwards to make sure okay yes they know this, they know this, they know this. You check the boxes, right?
Yeah, and that is that artful expression of what you say and when you say it comes into it. Now, I need to include here something else you said, which kind of puts a boundary, or at least frames that creative. We're not talking about purely unrestricted creativity. You make it very clear that they have to communicate to an audience, and that the work is going to be defined by ROI, not alone by creative expression. So this is we got to thread this needle here. This is an important balance to strike, don't you think?
Absolutely, and thanks so much for bringing that up, Glenn. Because I'm as extreme right-brained and disruptive as I am, I'm also a pragmatist,
Right.
and I very much honor and appreciate the industry that I'm in. And I feel very strongly, and one of the quotes in the book is, "Let it go, Picasso. This isn't fine art," and that's at the crux, at the core of this. Is it's not self-expression. It is not fine art. It needs to be the general public needs context when we're speaking with them, and that's at the core of why I use the title "Stop Looking for Zebras" and that chapter specifically is that we have to understand that there is an audience, there's a product. This is communications, and forgive me, I don't know if you wanted to get into this later, but the whole idea of zebras is that original idea that as artists we're always searching for that originality and that uniqueness that is us. And the problem is in the communications field, the general public don't like new. They don't know what to do with new. And so what we need to do, even if you do find that, and let's be frank about it. Uh, Pretty much everything has been done these days with the with the internet and the expanded audience and all of that. If you do find that 100% original idea, people aren't going to know what to do with that. So in my industry, or in our industry, what we really need to focus on is if we have that new, and sometimes it's the product that we're promoting or the service that we're promoting, that we need to wrap the new in the familiar.
Right. At least
And
anchor it to a category, for example.
exactly, and I use the example of the iPhone, or let's just even make it broader: smartphones.
Yeah.
They're called smartphones, but actually we use them as a phone about 10% of the time. We
Right.
very much use them for all of the added things. But if we called it the smart assistant, well, people wouldn't know what to do with that. But when
Yeah.
you associate the word phone to it, it's like, oh, I know where phone fits in my world. Okay. And then they slowly, if we look at, we'll look at Apple, they did announce it as a phone, and then it was like, oh, a phone with an iPod built in, and oh, a
Right.
phone with the app.
It's
So
actually a couple of
it's
things. Yeah.
slowly building it in, right?
Yep.
And so we need to do that with our communications, is give context. And I'll go back, I'm a pragmatist, so I get very frustrated with design out there that is design for the sake of design, and it's simply a designer, either in industrial design or advertising or whatever, that's doing something just for to be provocative, or just to get to make themselves known or whatever. And I want to see the beauty in communication, so it's got to have those two things.
Right, right. And the sometimes the simplest way to convey that is better than the brilliant way. So to bring us around to the punchline of the zebras, I believe it was from a person who teaches medical students who
Yes.
said, "When you hear hooves."
Yep. When you hear hooves, think horses, not zebras,
Right,
right? So the
because
most
that's the most
logical,
common and often thing. Yeah.
yeah, that's probably the way to go. And again, we a lot of people, if you're in content creation, if you're in social media, you come from a writing point of view. Designers come from an artistic point of view, but the essence, it comes from a creative point of view. And it's very easy for us, and entrepreneurs are no different. Entrepreneurs are the same. I coach a lot of entrepreneurs, and I spend a lot of time with them saying that's a great idea, but you need to park that and focus on this, your core idea, right?
Yep.
Because we're always searching for the new, and we're always searching for things that stimulate us, as far as refinement and things like that. And it's I think our biggest struggle is policing that. And
Yep.
saying, okay, this is done. It is good to go out. I don't have to keep exploring. Where it's in our nature to do that, is to nothing's ever done. It's like it's just a work in progress, and we want to refine and keep going, and that can very much get in the way. So stop looking for zebras. It's like you don't need a zebra. You just need a horse here. Get it out.
I think it's something that, perhaps afflicts people who allow their intelligence to bloom because they can think of zebras, right? They do have, they're not just, sticking to the mundane. And you point this out. I think the point that drove it home for me was you said, when you get into a corporate setting and you're presenting your ideas, this is before we get out the door. This is, if you're in an agency, this is when you're going to huddle the creative team around, or if you're in-house, this is when you're maybe arguing for the budget for, to go and outsource work to an agency. But you say presentations are the crucible in which your ability to stick to the main point, that's where it's going to be tested. And the amount of knowledge that you are going to give to the people listening has to be governed. They don't have a the granularity that you do to the subject, and they're also not there to get wowed by creativity, right? So what are some of the other things that you say to be very careful of when you're preparing to present your ideas?
So this is a great point, and it's something that I teach to my students as well, because the focus at school, and for a lot of us in the agency world and in the writing world, and that is creating the piece itself. And then we are so enamored with that
Right.
piece and know that it's checked all the boxes, and it's,
Ta-da!
yeah, exactly, it's an awesome moment, and we forget that the presentation will make or break that piece.
Yep.
How you present it will very much be that. And what people forget is that our clients, when we're presenting work, our clients are in a position of power within their organization. They either own the company or they're at an executive level. Therefore, they are used to being the decision maker. People come to them for the answers. And this is a process that is alien or uncomfortable to them.
Yeah, they
It's
don't know your field.
no, and so it's not accounting, it's not a supply chain, it is not manufacturing, it is not mathematical where they can point to where the issue is. So they are uncomfortable naturally. So what we need to do is to use inclusive language. We need to make sure that they feel that they've been a part of the process. And so when you're presenting, it's always like our process is always to the first meeting with the client to brief on a project is their meeting. We just listen
Right.
and we take furious notes. And then maybe prod a little bit if there's something that we need specifically. But then what we do is we send them what we call an echo, which is just basically bouncing back that meeting to them with all the
Mm.
salient points that we feel were something that we can work with. And
Yep.
we say, and it's an email, so it's evidence based, so it's got a date and a time, that, and we know that they received it. And we say, okay, here's what we gleaned. Thank you so much for that meeting. We learned so much from you. Okay, so again, giving them that authority power. Uh, Make sure you here are our notes. Make sure that we got everything correct and that there are no errors or whatever, because this will form our creative brief, or this is what the document that we will use to guide and to audit our work to. And so they get back to us. And then in our presentation meeting, we bring that up again, saying, thank you so much. That meeting was great. And so in that meeting, do you remember you mentioned this? So that's why you see it here. That's why you read it here.
And you
And this
tie it
point that
back.
you brought up, right? So it's like you, we, us together, bringing them into this process that is uncomfortable for them then gives them some ownership, and it puts them into a comfortable position that they're used to, and therefore they're going to likely not make as many changes, not make as many comments, because like, oh, okay, I was a part of this was great. And it's referencing their feedback, and that'll make such a difference.
That's at a basic level. And let's say you're dealing with a single business owner. That's great. You also, though, kick it into the next level where you say, let's say you've got a mid-sized organization. So now they're kind of heterogeneous, right? And I love the metaphor that you use to
Yeah.
uh, describe how a creative can stand in front of a group like that and try to please the different characters. Can you tell us that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up at a time where you were told if you were afraid, as everybody is, afraid of speaking in front of public or in groups of people and things like that. And I've been in situations, I'm sure a lot of you have, where you thought you were going into a meeting with two people and suddenly there's six, and it throws your
Including the head honcho.
exactly. So it throws your game off. And in some corporations, the meeting will be published on the calendar, and people go, "Oh, maybe I'll attend that," because they like their names on an agenda or whatever. But so that's going to happen, and it can throw your game off. So what's really important to understand is, and I come from a time where we were told if you're afraid of speaking in front of people, imagine them in their underwear, which is like absolutely ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
So the idea is that think of your presentation in front of a group of people as a family dinner, and let's say Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever holiday, where there's a group of people there, and understand that there is one meal. You've prepared a turkey, you've got ham, whatever it is that
Yeah.
you're prepared, and all of the fixins, all the side dishes and things like that. But it's one meal, and you've got 8 people there, and you have to understand that at this day and age, you've got, there's going to be a vegan there, there's going to be a vegetarian there, there's going to be somebody who's like super picky, there's a meat and potatoes person there. And that's how the meeting is structured, or at least you have to go into it with that mindset.
That's right.
So your meat and potatoes person wants you just to get to the point. They don't like all the fluff. They don't like all the ceremony and the build up. They just want to get to the point. Give me the numbers, or give me the points, the salient points. And then you've got another person there in the book. I think I call her Aunt Edna, who's like super picky. She doesn't like her food touching, and she's wondering why Uncle Ed is getting more potatoes than she does, right? And that person, that's the details person. So that's operations, that's accounting, that's that sort of person.
Yes.
So they want they
Yes.
want they want to get into the minute details. Then you've got interns and people like that who really don't want to be in that meeting, but they're there anyways, and they're bored, and that becomes obvious. So all of these, the rolled eyes and the shuffling
Yep.
of paper and things like that will throw you off your game. So in the book, I associate this presentation with these various characters and who they might be in the corporate structure. So again, the meat and potatoes is usually the CEO or the business owner, where they just like get to the point. I just want to know what's this going to cost me, or how is this going to help my business. To the Aunt Ednas and the Uncle Ed, who's there just to stir the pot, he's just there to cause trouble and for the free food. And you do get those people in meetings. I've seen them regularly. Um, and then how you deal with them. So for example, the Aunt Ednas, who are detail people, are going to interrupt you quite a bit to for clarification and yeah, but what about this and things like that. So how do you shut that person down? Well, you start your presentation with the idea of like, I'm going to go through this work. I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards once I've gone through all of the work. They will still interrupt. Just remind them very politely. Say, "Oh, thanks so much. That's a great point.
We'll get to that.
I'll answer that at the end." So we'll continue here. For the interns and the people, the disruptors and things like that, a little bit of humor goes a long way. And you play the game of I know that you know, and and maybe a little bit of self-effacing, just some little things just to make it a little more pleasant. But don't throw jokes in if you're not a funny person.
Right.
But observational, just know the room and, oh, that's a great tie, or, just bring people in. Again, inclusivity. Recognize that everybody at the table is there and you're making eye contact, and that's these things. And there's some very detailed tips within the book as well on how to deal with these different people and what their role might be.
Yeah, it's extremely helpful and practical. The thing I think that the person who's doing the presentation wishes at the end that there were some great accolades that come out. They may instead just get, okay, approved, or please make 2 revisions and then let's get it out the door. And you point out that this is something that, we may bellyache about it being right or wrong, that these non-creative people are just being so matter of fact about what we do and they're not praising us. But you say, really, that's for us to deal with. And frankly, the devotion to the craft should not be dependent on whether or not a lot of other people care. I loved, and I didn't know this was here, but you and I are both Canadians, and so another Canadian that I love this story was Bryan Adams. So,
Yes.
Maybe explain how he dealt with this fact that he wasn't getting the accolades, even though he knew he was putting out some really good stuff.
Absolutely. So it's just funny. I read an article. I'm a big music geek. And I remember, and also a creativity geek. So I always like to know the genesis and how something came about. And so I follow artists just to see how they got to where they are. And so in Bryan Adams' case, he had recorded an album that really went nowhere. And it was actually a pretty good album, but it just didn't get the radio play. And he was incredibly frustrated. And he was given another chance to make a second album. And so he was in the recording studio doing it, and he wanted to call the album Bryan Adams Hasn't Heard of You Either. And I thought, that is just brilliant. That is brilliant. It's perfect. But he took that with a grain of salt, with a sense of humor, and said, you know what, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back better and harder. And that album ended up charting and had some singles off.
Right. The name actually got watered down, but You Want It, You Got It down, still has a bit of that. Yeah, second album, all right, boom. And I'll have the Wikipedia link. I double-checked the facts, and I was absolutely laughing my head off when I heard that was a real thing. So, let's just remember that. We're going to move a little more onto the inward game and how a creative has to, deal with everything that is happening in their thoughts. But we're going to take a very quick break before that.
Breaking away for a sec to ask, do you have a lot of company data in reach, but struggle to get useful business insights out of it? Do you open up your Google Analytics, but find you're at a loss on how to get it reporting the way you want? Do you wonder what new marketing strategies you could leverage if you could just unlock what's in your data? If you said yes, then you sound just like other clients did when they started working with me. Many B2B companies who I've done project work with have been helped by modernizing their analytics. Some deploy dashboards, some activate their data using machine learning in their campaigns. As of this recording in fall of 2023, my schedule is opened up enough to accommodate 1 or 2 projects. Should you be ready to begin a project, let's talk about what you would like your analytics to do for you. Please reach out today via the podcast feedback channels or connect with me, Hey Glenn S, 2 N's on Glenn, on either Twitter or Instagram. Or search up Marketing Analytics People on LinkedIn. I'm usually the first Glenn that pops up. Okay, let's get back to the show.
So, Robert, something that we haven't addressed is the different modes that a creator can work in. We've been talking so far kind of that they're in a full-time role, maybe employed, inside of a group where it's their profession and their full-time paying job. You do also point out that choices can be made, more so today than maybe when you and I were starting out, but that there are some real pros and cons to, let's say, going the freelance route or putting your name on Upwork or Fiverr versus looking for something that is full time, or indeed deciding that you have it in you to build an agency where you will be bringing others, into play here. Let's maybe tackle the freelancers first. Maybe we could even call them amateur creators. And this is something where if you've been at this, for some time, you know this to be true. But if you're just starting out and you say you're going to be professional, you've got to be aware that there are substitutes that your buyer could go for who are inferior to you, but your buyer will still choose them. And you got to deal with that. Take us through a little bit of, whether you are going to be that person or whether or not you want to be the professional, and then just kind of just be wary of those amateurs on the side. Know they exist, but that you're not going to let that deter you.
Yeah, I think the reality. So we deal with the difference between creatives, and again, I cast a wide net on that: writers, designers,
Yep.
all of that. That you're going to have people who just jump right into it, and they learn through YouTube and online, and then okay, I'm a designer, I'm a writer, whatever, and jump right into it, and it creates a murky industry for people looking for those services, because it's hard to decide, okay, well, this work looks good versus this work, and I guess I would go with this one.
Do
And I
do
think
the
it's
letters after their name matter?
right.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? And so we have a professional organization, we're RGD, the Association of Registered Graphic Designers, designers, and so it's important to understand that difference, right? And it's something that you need to articulate, something that you need to explain, because it's not obvious to clients, because we are very much they judge us on aesthetics, and so when you lean into what we do is much more strategic than aesthetics. That's very important. So you've got to understand that you can be grumpy and all upset about these what I call weekend warriors who learn on online and stuff like that. But they exist. They're there. Like there's nothing you can do about it. It just adds more choice. To me, it adds definition to what we do. It gives you the opportunity to have that discussion, saying, "Well, here's why you would choose, or why my prices are more than this person." And that's important for them to know and to understand. So it's all about communications and dialogue, and that's something that I found very much. In how I've presented myself and my company. And we really use, for example, our website as a filter for that. So when a client comes in and they look our work and how we talk about it, they're like, yeah, no, I think this is a sledgehammer for a hammer job. Uh, or yeah, no, I need somebody who knows this stuff. So,
Or I
you
just want a template.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. And that's the other thing too, is that we've got to recognize, and I certainly do, that there's some beautiful templates out there that, like aesthetically, there's some really nice stuff out there, but it becomes a situation of just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? And so with clients, it's like, oh, I chose this one because I liked it, and like should never come into the equation. It's about your audience. It's about relevance, and it's about your audience seeing, okay, yes, this is me. They need to see themselves in that, right? It's not about you anymore. When you are a business and you're promoting your service or your product or whatever, once it goes into the general public, it becomes theirs, and they're going to tell you how to adapt it, and they're going to tell you what they need out of it. And a perfect example is the iPad, how it's evolved, because it was never intended to be a computer replacement ever.
Hmm.
It was something completely different. It was more of a reading template and things like that. And now it's become a computer replacement, to the point where Apple promotes it by saying your next computer may not be a computer. um, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay, so you've got to be cognizant of that. So again, going back to, freelancing and things like that, you very much need to, through your own communications, define who you are and what you do. And one of the things I say in the book is, if you are freelancing, if this is what you're doing during the day and things like that, stop calling it freelancing.
Yeah.
You are a business. And the minute that you start talking about yourself in those tones, that I'm a business, and you're taking it seriously, then others will take it seriously. The term freelance, people see, maybe because it's the word freeze at the beginning of it or whatever, but they see
Yeah.
discount.
Yeah.
They see not a professional, somebody just making it by just kind of doing something on the side, or they're not, professionally trained or whatever. So they see discount. So it's hard for you to charge properly for good work when you call yourself a freelancer.
Yeah, yeah,
That's really,
and you better know which one you are. Don't,
yes.
because as you say, the messages are so different to the buyer that if you muddy it, especially if you're a professional and you flirt with the idea of lowering your rates to freelancer rates, like
Yeah.
no, don't. There's a person I was reminded of when I was reading that part, Harlan Ellison, so totally different field, fiction writer, but
Hmm.
he's got, and I'll link to it, he's got a YouTube video where he says it's the amateurs that make it hard for the professionals.
Hmm.
So, but he knows he's a professional. And he's like, yes, I'll let you change my work. I'll let you slap a different cover. That's fine. You pay me. This is the deal. This is the arrangement. So you have to be very clear on which of those you are. And once you've established that, it should get easier, at least having that. There are different discussions, but once you pick a lane, that discussion should get easier with your client on proving the worth.
Yeah. And it comes with confidence,
Yeah.
and confidence comes from language, and language and confidence comes from yourself. You can't get it from other people. You can't wait for other people. You've got to show up with that attitude. And it's not, and when I say attitude, I don't mean negative. It's just with that confidence. When you're like, I'm a business, I take this seriously. Honestly, your physical posture will change, right? All of these things, and it affects how you talk. And that's another thing that I get on my students about this constantly, and some staff members, and it's in the book here. How you talk about your work defines how seriously you are taken. So when we use words like kinda, shoulda, and I hear that so often when people
Hmm.
are presenting their stuff, like, so in this logo we kind of took this and then we sort of put this, like, there's no kinda or sorta in what we do. Everything should be done with intention and purpose, and there is a reason. And when you start talking that way, then it takes the word like out of it, because it's not about like. And I've called out clients, where they said, well, I don't like that concept. It's like, well, I don't care, because you're not your audience. And okay, I'm a bit of a shit disturber, fine, but I've said that to a CEO of a high tech company, literally. And he was kind of taken aback. And I said, look, I have to explain to you, I saw your car parked out front, so I can assume what kind of house you live in and the level that you're at. Okay. You are not your audience. You have created an incredible company here. You have done what a CEO should do. You've got great people working for you. You've got a great product. You're shipping. You're doing dynamite things. But in this case, you can't be objective,
Right.
because you are not the audience. So what you like and what you don't like is not relevant here.
And this can only be done from a place where you, as the person who's made the creative, is clear on what you can do. You can speak to them with that authority if you've cleared up your head junk on, any of the hangups you have, on, whether you feel the creative process kind of feels like, coloring in elementary school, or, you got to get all of that out, and you really hit this inner monologue problem head on. You don't mince words about it. You claim
Yep.
the inner monologue is that asshole that lives inside your head.
Yeah. And that's the thing is you have to have that, particularly if you're presenting. In a lot of cases, we're presenting people in authority in that, and it's easy to turtle. But you have to understand, at the end of the day, you've been hired for a reason. And if you're not doing your job, you're wasting their money. Okay. And so they've hired you because they can't do what you do. Bottom line, you're at the table for a reason. And so therefore you need to present yourself that they've made the right choice. They picked the right person. Their money is being spent well because you're standing behind, no, this based on what, and that's why that echo is important and why the inclusive language is important, is because you're saying, look, we're in this together. Your client is a subject matter expert in their business and in their products, and that there's no denying that. You are the expert in communicating that to an audience, whether it's through words or designs or strategy for social media, and that they've hired you for that reason. So it's a partnership. Unfortunately, for so many years when I first started in the industry, it was very much this situation of us versus them with clients. And I never understood that. And I feel very strongly with my clients that
Mm.
they're partners in this process and that I make sure they understand that. But as a result, I'm the authority on the execution and on the how we're going to talk to the audience. So there's got to be some respect from the client to that end. So to that
Do you
end,
think, just burrowing on that for a sec, do you think that that's where the kind of fixation with awards, with
yeah,
especially peer awards, came from? That, well, I won't get respect in the boardroom, so I'm going to go over to my club, my palsy wowsy friends,
yeah,
and we're all going to slap each other on the back. And it's kind of, well, we don't care whether it's commercially successful or not. Isn't that beautiful?
yeah. Isn't that something you wish you had done? And I've won,
Like
and it's
that's a shibboleth, right? You say, don't chase that.
no, that's the thing, and I can say that from, and it's not bragging. I've won a boatload of awards, international awards. I've been in hardcover books. I've been in magazines regularly, and we were literally moving our office one day, and one of my staff, my new staff, pulled out this box, and she said, "What's in this box?" And I said, "Oh, that's awards." And it was like a massive stack of certificates and trophies and things.
Right.
And she looked at me, looked at the box, looked at me. She goes, "Why aren't these out?" And I'm like, "I just never got around to it." And because I
That says a
spent
lot.
a lot of years chasing awards, just for self gratification, just for, justification and that. And it never got me anything. And in fact, and there's something in the book as well, you've got to realize that awards have a shelf life. So if you win an award today, this time next year, it just serves as a reminder, like, what have you done lately?
The
Have you
clock
won
is
something
ticking.
lately?
Yeah.
So you've really got to take it. I know I don't bemoan the awards and things like that. They were great. They made my mom happy. For people who are not in the industry, they go, "Wow, you get awards." So it does. It feels good, but understand why they're there and that and what they mean. In any given award, the Grammy Awards, that Beyonce album better than the Foo Fighters or whatever? Subjective,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know? So, I'm a big fan, and don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of award annuals and that, and I just hound over them and I love them and I go through it. But I look at them and go, there's no way that was effective for the client. Like half the
Yes.
work in there, I'm like, there's no way there was
Right.
any ROI on that,
Right. Right. We
because
won't find a metric that shows a
yeah,
lift based on that. Now, that can also, though, kind of wreck with someone's head because they're not necessarily, in those public venues like an award ceremony or a boardroom when they need to get the creative work done. That's happening in a back room, and they might have the tendency to censor themselves. Oh, they'll never go for that, or I'm no good at this. Um, you say to yourself, be very careful how you're talking to yourself when you're doing that. You say,
Mhm.
for example, give the situation an opportunity to happen, right? So if you even think that, oh well, they'll shoot that down, well, will they? You don't
Yeah.
know.
That's it. And what's funny is people look at that as self-deprecating, which it can be an imposter syndrome. Oh, they'll never choose it. But look, think of it this way: spin it the other way. You're being very disrespectful to your client,
Right, to deprive them.
right? Maybe they're smarter than you think. Maybe they do get it. Maybe they do. Like, don't
Hmm.
disregard your client. But also, and the thing is, and we go back to, you were hired for a reason. And what I always say is, like, we will present, let's say we're presenting three concepts. I always present one that the client is somewhat expecting, but with a bit of a spin on it.
Yeah.
Then something a little more progressive, and then something that we think is going to be really disruptive and really get interesting. That's what the clients hired you for. They hired
Correct.
you for your thinking. It's like, I didn't own a tie for years, and I would show up at meetings with a sport coat and a graphic T-shirt on and jeans. And I remember my ex looking at me when I was leaving for a meeting. She goes, "You're not going to the meeting like that?" And I'm like, "Yes." And it was for a big corporation. And that I said, "Yes, absolutely." I said, "Look, if I show up in a tie and a suit, they'll be disappointed because they're going to look at me and say, 'My accountant dressed like that.' I don't
Hmm.
want my creative person dressing like that. Like, I want to see creativity, right?" And
Yeah.
so when you're presenting concepts, they're expecting to be pushed. And the other thing that I tell my clients right off the bat is, look, my job here is to make you uncomfortable. Okay. Because you've addressed that what we're
Hmm.
currently doing isn't working. And guess what? What you're currently doing is comfortable for you. So if I'm not making you uncomfortable,
That's it.
I'm not doing my job.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you're super happy with the status quo.
Right. Exactly.
Do you think that you're a little bit more creative, or maybe you speak in a slightly different way, or stand a little taller on the, balls of your feet in an outfit like that? Because you go into this in the book where you talk about like where we should be when we're getting inspiration for what we're doing. You say, get out from behind the desk. Like
Yeah.
you do. I'm sure you believe that the things we surround ourselves with, the books we read, the clothes we wear, these are all being fed in to the machine that's
Yep.
cranking out the creative.
Yep. So people are always mystified, like, I always get my best ideas in the shower, right? That's a common one.
Yep.
And there's a reason for that, okay? Because our brains kind of work a little bit like a computer where things happen in the background, right?
Right.
And so when you brief yourself on a job, when you read the echo from the client and you do a little bit of research in that, and then you walk away and do something else, suddenly an idea will appear. Okay, it's in the book I talk about, percolating isn't just for coffee.
Hmm.
And that's you're not, suddenly you're like, oh, there's the idea, because it's been percolating, and
Yep.
suddenly something you saw at the window, or something that popped up on TV, or you picked up a book or something, suddenly you went, that's what I was looking for, that's the idea. And that's, then you can move it forward. Now, a lot of jobs you don't have the time for that to happen, but that the whole idea of educating yourself, doing that initial thinking cerebral process. And for me, it has to be like writing it down on paper. I word map, so I write a lot of words
Hmm.
down and things like that, and I let them percolate. um, Thing is, and I called out the college for this. When you walk into a graphic design department, you see long desks with computers in front of them. And so I
Yeah.
point out to the students, I said, okay, this is problematic. And they're like, why? I said, because there's no thinking space here. What's being taught here is that when you walk in, you sit down at a desk, you have to go to the computer to work. And you can't create staring at a screen. You can't create because there's too many distractions. There's too many things that are already done. And that you really need to read the briefing, write it down. The act of taking something out of your head physically through a pen or a pencil or a stylus onto a surface gets it out of your brain and becomes reality. And so you need that unencumbered space to think. And so many designers, that's why it became popular to go to Starbucks or to go to a
Hmm.
coffee shop or to the library or somewhere else, right? It's what happens in that process is you've sat in front of your computer, you've read the briefing, you've done some stuff on the computer, you've got your notes. The travel time from your office to the coffee shop or to the library allows your brain to kind of percolate. Sitting down in a different space puts you in a different
Yeah, comfy
mindset,
chair. Yep.
and you start to think, and you start to you're now present. When I do workshops, and one of the tricks that I do is the morning sessions we talk about mindset and things like that, and then they take a break. And while they're on break, I take all the chairs out.
Okay.
So when they come in, they stop and they're looking around.
Right.
And I said, okay, what's happening right now? And they said, well, there's no chairs in the room. I said, yes, but more importantly, you had the mindset coming out of lunch that, okay, I'm going to come back in, I'm going to sit down in my chair, I'm going to
Right.
take notes, I'm going to, no, 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 no,
In the
no.
exact same chair, in the exact same way.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And so you were already not present. Okay. You've walked into the room and now
Mhm.
there's no chair. So now your brain is problem solving. You are now present because you got to deal with this in some way. Now, and I said, all I did was move the chair. That's it. I haven't done anything apocalyptic or anything crazy in here. I haven't repainted the room or anything. I just moved the chairs. So little things, little disruptions like that will suddenly bring you to become present.
Yeah, there are disruptions though that remove things. You point out that the computer is going to be, or your phone is going to be popping up notifications,
Yep.
and you say that we shouldn't be. The computer is there to actually be our servant. We're supposed to give it input. It shouldn't be driving the reverse from us, right?
Yep.
Demanding our attention, because that's just going to kill our ability to get clear on what we're doing.
Yep. And that's one thing I find funny because um, computers are dumb. I mean, they really at the base they're dumb. They only know what we tell it. Well, they only know what they are programmed and what is built within the background, right? And for some reason, we go to computers for answers, and the answers that we get are human generated, and that. But when we look at creativity, it's a different mindset. It's a different process, and we can't rely. I love technology and I love my computer because it makes my work better. It doesn't make my work.
Right.
It makes it better. It allows me to refine. It allows me to iterate. It allows me to do things a lot more efficiently, but it doesn't make my work.
Hmm. Very true. Very true. Uh, to finish here, I want to delve into who the book really could be usable by, and you make a strong case that uh, you think that people who work in creative, graphic design, maybe communications, marketing, that they are well suited for this. They, probably have the shortcomings that you're pointing out in the book. But I'm wondering, do you really think that their psyche is unique, or do you think that the advice that you have has broader application? I'll let you choose which side of that to take, but I'm really interested to know if you think there is something that is particular about if I boil it down, just being conscious of, the things that you're doing and realizing how that influences what the ultimate output's going to be.
Yeah. So I think it's a funny book. So I think anybody should read it just because it's a fun read. But that's me. And the great illustrations in it.
Yeah.
No, I think the intent of the book was for people who make their living being creative. Period. So that again, that might be writing, that might be video, that might be social media, that might be graphic design, even art. There are people who make their living making art. So it's just that aspect of you are creating something that has an audience, and if you fill in that blank, then great. But I also think again, this is great for I would say for parents with creative kids
Hmm.
who are thinking about a
Right.
career. in the industry or whatever, high school kids, I think this would be great for them. And that's been a focus of mine because I was that high school student.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I've raised two boys now who've gone through high school. Things haven't changed.
Yeah.
They haven't changed as I went through. My older son was disruptive. And it's not because he was lighting things on fire or throwing things. It was because he was right and he was,
Just expressive.
expressive. And, that was something I was very conscious with him to say, no, you are not. And you know what? Disruptive is an awesome word for you, and own it and celebrate it. So I think it's just that wider audience. I mean, we're taught in the marketing industry to say, okay, target your audience, particularly this day and age. You want a niche. Okay, sure. Graphic designers, and that, but honestly, no, it's much, much wider than that. It's really about mindset and celebrating the individual mind that you have and the opportunities that it presents and the people out there in the world that want to hear.
Beautifully said. And I will say that, you would never trust me for anything more than a back of a napkin drawing. But yes, I felt extremely included in the stuff that you talked about. It didn't for a second feel like it was just meant for the peers in your particular profession. You're right. If you've got a brain, then you've got most of the issues that Robert's talking about.
Yep.
And it does have that applicability. Robert, I can't thank you enough. If people want to find out more about the book or about what you do, your workshops, all of that, where can they go?
So the main website for that is think-smith.com. And there's a reason for that. It's funny, people associate, well, your last name is Smith and think Smith. I get it. But it goes deeper than that. If we look back in the medieval times, you had blacksmiths, you had silversmiths, you had tinsmiths. And all that meant is that you were an expert in something. So blacksmith was an expert at making, shoes for horses and things like that. The time that we're in now, we don't need experts in that, but we need experts in thinking. So we really need ThinkSmiths in this world now, people who can think and that's what they do, and then allow the technology to fill in the blanks. So that's the whole idea of ThinkSmith.
Yes, I couldn't say it better. We're at a time where the technology does seem to be taking a run at thinking for us and drawing for us and writing for us. So you're right. We better pay more attention to that uniquely human aspect of intelligence. So that's a great place to go. And the name of the book, once again, is Stop Looking for Zebras.
Correct. Excellent.
Robert, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Glenn. That was a great pleasure.
Please check out the show notes. And if you found something that was useful, please share this episode with a friend. And this should hopefully give people information and insight that's going to help them in making their marketing even better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.